Welcome to the Proud American Patriot Podcast. I'm your host, Chad. What are we going to talk about today? What's on everyone's mind? Well, today, I want to be a woman. No, not really, but that seems to be what a growing portion of the population seems to think, and an even larger portion of the population thinks it's completely okay and should be encouraged. There's going to be some more shows in the future where I'm going to dive deeper into this, but today, I'm going to debunk the radical left's idea that there is no difference between men and women. So, I've got children, and I truly and honestly encourage my children to try everything, be it at school, hobbies, sports, whatever. I think if they have a little bit of interest in something, they should go out and try it. Hell, even if they don't have much interest in something, I think it's good for them to go out and try different things, just to get the experience. And I don't believe that most things are bound by gender or sex. In fact, probably 99% of the things we do in our lives are not dependent on gender, sex, anything else. It's just part of what we do in our lives. Doesn't matter whether you're male, female. But that doesn't mean that gender and sex don't have a place in our lives, and that our lives don't have specific places for those genders, or for that gender and sex. I always ask them what they want to be when they grow up. And not once have they said to me anything about being the opposite sex. And in fact, one time, not too long ago, when I was working on an idea for this episode, I asked them, in the world of sports, if a boy thinks that he's a girl, what do you think about that and wants to compete with girls? And here are their responses. And like they say, out of the mouth of babes. One of them said they should just make 2 more categories. And I asked, for those people who are confused? And the answer, yes. The other's response was, well, maybe they should just go to therapy, which I think would be a great idea, except for there are a lot of people in the mental health field that are pushing this ideology. So I don't know how much that would help, but I definitely think a good dose of therapy and trying to figure out where this is coming from would definitely help. But anyway, back to the differences. To me, an easy way to see this is in the world of sports. It shows how men and women are built different. Nothing wrong with them being built different. It's just natural genetics and evolution has caused men and women to be built different. That's why up until recently we've had men's and women's sports. As Congress passed Title IX, I don't remember exactly what the year was, and I forgot to look it up. But Congress passed Title IX so that women got equal opportunities in college sports. So that women could have all the same opportunity in college sports that men enjoyed. It doesn't matter if their sport is more or less popular than the men's. It doesn't matter if they're in a sport that's profitable for the school or that makes sense from a financial standpoint. If a college has 7 men's sports, they have to have 7 women's sports. Have to. It's law. It's part of Title IX. They have to have equal numbers and equal opportunities, equal scholarships, everything that goes along with that. The idea was to give women equal footing and opportunities in sports. This is an idea I believe in. I support it. I think that if a school is going to field a men's basketball team, they should field a women's basketball team. If a men is going to have if a college is going to have 5 men's sports, they should have 5 women's sports. Give them the opportunity. They're no different when it comes to being able to play sports. The difference is, however, is when you start to blur that line between men's and women's sports. You see, the left claimed to be the champion of women for years and years and years. That is until another group came up with a cause that was apparently more important than, a little bit better than half the population of the U.S. A cause that the nearsighted idiots on the left thought they could twist and cause chaos over. So let's take a look at some facts. And I'm going to outline some areas where factually it's proven that men and women are different when it comes to sports, and therefore different in other areas as well. I'm going to start with a sport that is very near to my heart, one of my favorite sports, mixed martial arts. So there's a fighter named Fallon Fox. For those of you who don't know who Fallon is actually a man who was born Boyd Borton, a 7-foot 5-inch man who fights in the women's featherweight division. Yes, you heard that right. He fights in the women's featherweight division. Or at least he did. You see, in 2006, at the age of either 30 or 31, he went to Bangkok, Thailand, and received gender reassignment surgery so he could claim to be a woman. Now, at this point, he was well past puberty. He was physically a man. Nothing could or would change that, plain and simple. I don't care how many hormones you injected into him. He was well past puberty. His body had developed as a man. His hands, his bone density, his muscles, his joints, his ligaments, tendons, everything about him was a prepubescent man. Then, after that, he decided to enter the world of professional sports as a mixed martial arts athlete. Not as a man, but as a woman. Yes, he felt that he could prove how good he was by fighting women. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of very talented and skilled mixed martial arts females at the higher levels. But still, if you took a top-tier female mixed martial artist and put her up against a top-tier male mixed martial artist, majority of the time she's going to come out on the short end of that fight. And that's pretty much what happened with Fallon. His first career fight, he fractured a woman's skull. He fractured her fucking skull. Do any of you know how difficult it is to fracture a skull with your fists? It's not something that's easy. Your skull is made to take a lot of damage. It's made to take impact. Big, thick, heavy bones in your skull. So, yeah, he fractured her skull by beating on her with his fists. Something that, if it happened out on the streets, he'd have been arrested for and still be in prison. His career spanned just over 2 years and 6 fights, ending with a 5-1 record. So he lost one, so it can't be, that he wasn't that, he was good or whatever. Well, no, not really. So the person that he lost to was a woman named Ashley Evans Smith, who was technically and skill-wise much, much better than Fallon, because Fallon didn't have a lot of skill. He won his fights pretty much on brute force, which as a man he did have compared to women. And, the other thing is Ashley Evans actually went on to have a stint in the UFC, so it's not like she was someone that was trying this out and never went anywhere. So, what about Fallon? Why did he retire then? Well, he didn't retire because he couldn't win fights against women, because he obviously did. He retired because word of him being a man got out, and he couldn't get licensed to fight. At least the athletic commissions were doing something right there. However, this misunderstood transgender individual said in a tweet from 2020, for the record, and this was after his second fight they tweeted this out, for the record, I knocked out 2, one woman's skull was fractured, the other not. And just so you know, I enjoyed it. So this is a guy that not only fought women, he got off on fighting women. In my book, that's a sick bastard, but maybe that's just me. So let's move on to someone more current, because this is still going on, as I'm sure a lot of you are aware. So more current, let's take a look at William Thomas, who many people probably know better at this point as Lia Thomas. Why? Because William Thomas didn't amount to much as a swimmer. He swam on the UPenn men's team for 2 years and was unsuccessful as a male swimmer, ranking 462nd in the world, until he decided that he was a she. And I'm sure you all know how this turned out. A 6'1" man competing against women. It doesn't take a big rocket scientist to figure that out, but he did take the COVID year off, mainly because a lot of school sporting events were canceled, and so that he could compete this transition on hormones, and then compete against women. Yes, his times were lower after the hormone replacement therapy and the muscle loss, or was this just as much due to taking a year off from competition? How many athletes out there do you see take a year off from competition and return back to their previous state? So was it that, or were they just trying to make it sound like hormone therapy works? That hormone therapy can successfully turn a man into a woman? Well, I got news for you, it can't, because Leah/William was still a post-pubescent man who went on to compete against women, and not just compete against them, but dominate them. And there are lots of examples about this in sports. You've got the example of Serena Williams back when she was far and away the best women's tennis player, and had a warm-up match before one of the tennis tournaments, and she had a warm-up match with a man who was ranked 200 and something, and he beat her. It wasn't even close. So, a 200-something ranked man against the far and away number one women's tennis player, not even a competition. Or there's the example of the women's U.S. national soccer team losing to a team of under 15 boys. So our best women in soccer lost to a team of under 15 boys. I'm sure they were really good. It was probably a select team or something like that, but it was still under 15 boys. But to me, this next set of examples I'm going to give you are the most telling examples out there. What if I asked you, in track and field, how many high school boys in the U.S. would have competitive results when comparing their 2023 year with the women's all-time world records? So 1 year of high school boys track and field versus the field of women's all-time world records. What do you think would happen? Maybe close in a couple of events. They might get close to the women's records, because after all, we're talking about the best results ever by a woman recorded. Well, the loony left would have you say there's no difference. This isn't even close when we're looking at high school boys versus women's world records, because after all, they're the same. So why would you even compare this? By their logic, not even a competition. Well, I looked this up, and I'll put the websites that I got this information from in the descriptions. But yeah, the numbers even surprised me. The site that I went to, I got the women's world records, and then for the majority of the boys' results, they listed the top 10 placings. And yes, I said boys because that's what they are. They're high school boys. So what were those results? What happened in the world of track and field when we look at all of these numbers? Well, I will tell you. In the 100-meter dash, Florence Griffith Joyner set that record on July 16th, 1998. She ran 10.49. And there's some debate on that because it may have been wind assisted. So even if you take that as not being wind assisted, and for those of you that don't know, in track and field, if the wind is strong enough, especially if it's blowing at the back, they can disqualify the record because the wind can assist that in gaining a couple hundredths of a second. So she ran a 10.49, women's world record. This year in high school men's boys, the fastest time was 9.89. Not only that, but the entire top 10 beat her record. Okay, well, Chad, that's just one event. You went and cherry-picked one event. Well, no, not so fast. So, 200 meter. Again, FloJo has the record for that. She set that in Seoul, South Korea on September 29th, 1998, running a time of 21.34. Looking at high school men's, fastest time, 19.97. And again, top 10 listed times beat that. And I'm sure if they went beyond the top 10, there'd be several more that beat it. 400 meter. World record women's time, 47.6. Men's, 45.12. And again, all top 10 beat it. 800 meter. Women's world record, 1 minute 53.3 seconds. High school men in 2023, 1 minute 47 seconds, or 47.6 seconds. Again, the entire top 10 beat the women's world record. Same thing with the 1500 meters. All 10 high school boys beat the record. The mile, again, all 10 boys times beat the world record. The 3000, well, that one's a little bit different. So that one, only the top 5 boys beat the world record this year. And that's just this year. Look at the 2 mile plus. Again, all top 10 boys beat the record. 5,000 meters. Top 5 beat the record, but they only listed the top 5 for this event. 10,000 meters. High school boys beat the record again. Not by much this time, it was just by under a second, but they still beat it, and it only had one record listed for the boys. Well, that's track, and that's the track side. That's just the running side. What about the other events? So look at some of the field events. High jump, pole vault, long jump, all of those, the boys beat the women's world record. In the high jump, all 10 beat. In the pole vault, all the 10 listed beat. In the long jump, 8 of the top 10 beat that record. So, can you really tell me that there is no difference? That boys and girls, men and women are the same? Do they really have the same build, the same ability? Because if they did, we wouldn't be seeing results like these. We'd be seeing maybe a spattering here and there of boys being close to that record. Maybe in the 100-meter, we might see one boy that was maybe, half a second off that record or something like that. Somewhere where you can say, okay, yeah, they'd run competitively with it, but they're not beating. No, we don't see that. We see the entire field listed beating the women's world record. And believe me, I think that women's sports is great. I think that women have a place in sports. I think that they should be allowed to compete, but against other women. That's why you have men's sports and women's sports. If we didn't, then it'd just be sports. It's kind of scary looking back. I'm a big Monty Python fan, and for those of you that have seen Life of Brian, there's a scene there where one of them says, "But I want to be a woman." And they'll tell him you can't be a woman, and he insists that you can be a woman. Now, if that's not foreshadowing from, I want to say Life of Brian was in the mid to late 70s, if that's not foreshadowing, I don't know what is, because apparently some people watched that movie and took it seriously. But that's kind of the end of my rant. I do want to bring in Mike from the Just Us Thinking podcast. He's sitting here with me. He's been listening to this. I want to get your opinion on all of this, Mike. What do you think?
So I came in this cold. I didn't know what this was going to be about. I sat in and listened. God, these are boys that beat these girls, right?
High school boys. And on a couple of them, it wasn't like seniors that were, pretty much fully developed. A couple of them were juniors and sophomores.
Listen, women's sports are great. You're right. There's physical differences between them, and I will tell you, boxing is a good example as well. Even boxing in the men's division, you have lightweight, featherweight, heavyweight. There's different
weight classes, and there's a reason they do that, to make it even in the competition.
Right.
Imagine a 135-pound boxer fighting a super heavyweight boxer.
Well, I still have to go back to Muhammad Ali's daughter. She boxed.
Layla
right?
Ali.
Yep. Great boxer. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's good stock she came from, right?
Definitely. Some of the best boxing stock you can get.
Yep. Put her against Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
There's no way. Mike Tyson. Did you see that there was a celebrity roast where one of the jackass, I think it was Steve-O, they had Mike Tyson on. Steve-O ran at Mike Tyson's fist. He just held it out. He's so solid, he held out his fist. He ran into the fist and broke his nose. Did you know that?
I didn't know that, but I could see him doing that.
Mike Tyson doesn't have to throw a punch to break your nose.
And what that is that's because Mike Tyson is a man, and his bone density. His hands are just naturally bigger because he's a man. His bones are denser because he's a man.
Right.
So
it's just amazing that, I guess my issue that I have here is, if we're so for equal rights in women, why are we taking that away from them?
Exactly, and that's what the left wants to do. They want to take those rights to compete away from them. How many girls in high school, college, lost spots on a team or lost a scholarship because there was some boy that couldn't compete with the boys, so he decided he was going to be a girl?
Yeah. And I still don't think especially on a kid's level, if you're a biological boy, I don't care if you're taking hormones or whatever, you sure as hell do not need to be in that locker room with the girls.
Oh, definitely. And you say on kids levels, and to me, there's a time where you can have mixed gender in competitive or semi-competitive sports, and then you get to the point where you have to draw the line and separate them.
Correct.
And when you're talking young grade school, yeah, you can have a soccer team that is boys and girls. You start getting into older grade school, junior high, high school, there starts to become differences in there, and
Puberty.
you need to separate them out so that it's equal.
It's when puberty starts to
Right.
hit. That's the defining line. Now, these are in sports. Now, I don't care if a guy wants to become a girl and then live his life as a girl. I care less. That's whatever they want to do.
If he wants to
that's
pretend
their
he's a
deal.
girl, that's his life.
Yeah, none of my business, really.
But that's what he is. He's not a girl. He's pretending to be a girl.
Yeah, and I could care less. But when you go into the sports or you start invading on, I don't know, you start to invade their space. Mm-hmm. Why they have their space? I want my space.
Yeah.
Why do we need to invade other people's space there? Doesn't make sense.
And going back to the locker room comment you mentioned, yeah, we shouldn't have fully developed men in women's locker rooms. And I would think that if I was in a locker room, be it I was playing sports when I was younger, or even now if I went to the gym and then afterwards went to wash off and clean up, and some woman walks in claiming that she's a man, I'd find that a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Well,
Professional sports has cheerleaders.
Yeah.
They're not sharing the same locker, are they?
I'm sure not.
Well, there's probably a reason for
Right.
that.
Right. You even look at going broader than just the world of sports. And I'll have to look this up. It's something I'm going to talk about in one of the future shows about this subject. But I want to say it was Loudoun County, Virginia. There was a high school there who a boy claimed to be a girl, so the school made all of these exceptions for him and told him, oh yeah, if you think you're a girl, then there's nothing wrong with you using the girls' restroom. Well, apparently one time he went in there and started harassing some girls, but that didn't put a stop to this policy. One of the next times he went in there, he raped a girl in the bathroom. And if you ask the left, it was apparently her fault, or it never happened, one of the two.
Yeah, like I said, I think there's a reason that they're separated, so things like that don't happen.
Right, because opening up ourselves to lawsuits up the wazoo.
Yeah, I would say if I was, whatever I'm doing, if I was going to be in a position with a female where I might be uncomfortable being alone with a female, mm-hmm. I would like a witness there. Oh. I'm sorry, that's just me.
Yeah, the Me Too movement ruined that for everyone. It's you can't be alone with a female as a male anymore. There's got to be someone else there just in case.
Yeah.
Especially if you're high profile or you have money or anything like that. Because let's face it, unfortunately, the majority of today's population is out to make a quick buck.
And that's the problem. It's not the gender itself; it's the people behind it is the problem. Mm-hmm. There are going to be bad apples.
Yep.
There's going to be people that take advantage of whatever situation that you could put them in. Perverts exist. Hate to say it. And if they could say, "Hey, I'm going to exploit this loophole," we're giving the opportunity. I hate to say it, but no. If I'm going to the bathroom and a girl has to go to the bathroom really bad, she goes in the men's restroom and goes. Yeah, it looks a little weird, but the reality is you're in there to do your business and move on. Mm-hmm. The problem is the pedophiles, the perverts. Mm-hmm. They ruin it for everybody.
And I've been out at bars and whatnot and run into that situation. And if you go to a bar, women's restroom line is always 10 people out the door. Men, we're quick about we get in and we get out, we're done. And I've been in the restroom where a female has popped her head in here and said, look, I really need to go, can I use one of the stalls?
Yeah.
She came in, used the stall, and there have been a couple of times where just judging the people around me that are in the restroom, I told her, I'll stay in here until you're done and I'll walk you out just to make sure everything's fine.
I've actually been in a situation myself for that.
You were a woman?
Well, yeah, I was a woman for like 20 seconds or so. So the Walmart over here by my house, the men's room is on one side, the women's on the other side. Well, we were out in Bellevue, and the restrooms are reversed. I wasn't paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
I had to go, so I just walked in the restroom like it was all Walmarts look alike.
Right.
I have no idea why this one Walmart they decided, screw this, we're going to switch this around. So I go in there, I go to the bathroom. No one was in there when I walked in, so I didn't even think about it. And I got in there, I went to the bathroom, and as I was coming out, there's a girl coming in. And I stop, and then I kind of looked over, and I'm like, oh, there's
no urinals.
There's no urinals in here. and I kind of froze, and I'm like, and she looked at me, and I'm like, I think I'm in the wrong place. And she goes, yeah. And I was walking out, there was another couple of women. I'm like, sorry, wrong. It's backwards here. And I walked out.
There are a lot of things backwards in Bellevue.
That's true. But I tell you, that simple mistake made me feel really bad.
And I was sure, it made you feel uncomfortable, and
I was uncomfortable.
People are thinking you're some sort of pervert, and
right. So when I walk out of there, are these women saying, "Hey, some pervert guy was in the bathroom"? No, I just picked I made a simple mistake.
You're on autopilot, and the Walmart by you that you always go to, the men's restroom is on the left, and you went to the left, and this one was reversed.
Yeah. Now I could see that happens. I could see that happening.
And there's a difference between an honest mistake and intentionally using the wrong gendered bathroom.
Correct. Now, if I do that again, or if I keep going in there, yeah, I'm going to go check it out. You got a pretty pair of underwear under there. Start talking pervert and stuff like that. Yeah, that's where the problem is.
Right. And yeah, that's I've done the same thing. I've been on autopilot, went to walk into a bathroom and it was reversed, and I take a couple steps in there, look around, and wait, no urinals, wrong one.
Yep. It happens. Honest mistakes happen, and no one's faulting anybody for honest mistakes. But everything that you're talking about here, you don't honestly mistake going into women's sports.
No.
On accident.
Yeah. You don't, in your 30s, say, well, I was mistaken all my life. I'm a woman, so I'm going to compete against women and crush their skulls, and then get off on it.
That's a purpose. Even so, you were doing sports otherwise. You didn't hack it in your division, so you're gonna get off on it. It almost is. You're right. It's almost kind of like they get off on that kind of stuff. It's kind of sick.
Or you're so weak-minded and have such a shallow ego that I couldn't make it against the boys, and I'm a boy, so I better find a way to compete against the girls because I could probably compete against them and look good.
If that's the case, don't compete in sports.
Right.
If you're not good enough, hey, listen, I'm not going to go to toe-to-toe with Kobe Bryant. I'm sorry.
No.
He's going to whoop my ass. I'm not going to go into men's basketball because I know that's just not my sport.
Right. And, well, yeah, basketball's never been my sport and never will be, but, it's White Men Can't Jump. The idea of that movie was about me because I have no vertical. But, William Thomas, he couldn't hack it with the boys, so he decided he was going to swim with the girls, thinking that, he'd be great. And yeah, you know what? The ultra left and the liberal media, they celebrated him at every turn. Oh, look at this transgender athlete, the peak of performance in women's sports. Well, yeah, because he's a fucking man. He's not a woman.
Well, who was Woman of the Year? Wasn't Kylie Jenner Woman of the Year one year?
Well, Kylie Jenner's that's the daughter. So she is a woman.
Oh, no, okay.
But you're thinking Bruce Jenner, who turned into Caitlyn Jenner.
Yeah, sorry.
And here's the funny thing, though. He is completely against men competing in women's sports.
Well, and I think he's right.
He is. Look at him back when he was in his prime. Because he's a gold medal winner. He won a gold medal in the decathlon.
Yep.
And, imagine if back then he would have said, I think I'm a woman, I want to compete with women. Imagine how much he would have crushed them at that time.
He was crushing guys.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, he was making guys look like clowns.
Yeah.
And, to me, there is no place in women's sports for boys to compete. Now, if it's an intramural, college get-together softball team, that's one thing. You're doing that for fun. It's not necessarily competitive. And the rules are set out beforehand that it's a squad of boys and girls.
Yeah.
Not go back to Fallon Fox. Her first several competitors didn't know that she was a man.
Yeah.
They had no idea.
I don't like the dishonesty.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that deception. If he would have came out and said, "Hey, I'm a guy. I'm competing for the women. I'd like to fight you," and they accepted, all bets off.
Right.
But you deceived them.
Exactly.
Now,
and he did have one fight lined up where his opponent found out that he was a man, and she said, "Nope, I'm not going to do it."
Yeah.
And I don't blame her.
There's very few sports that men and women are on equal grounds. Bowling, I could see men's and women bowling, but even those
even
are different.
bowling. I mean, typically men are stronger, which means you're going to be able to use a bigger. And I don't bowl. I
do.
I know. You're big into bowling. To me, bowling is an excuse to go drink beer.
Yeah. So,
but as a man,
with bowling, I could give you the examples. Men on a league, go any bowling alley. You have them there. Go find a league sheet. They have them all over. And look at the men's high scores and look at the women's high scores. Men dominate that all. And here's why. Men have better upper body strength. Mm-hmm. When they throw the ball, they get more revolutions on that ball. That ball is spinning at a higher rate. It's hitting the pins with more impact and causing more pin action down there than a woman.
Which makes sense. You've got men who have more upper body strength, which means they can throw a bigger and heavier ball more consistently.
Right.
Means they can also throw it harder.
Right.
Means they can also put more torque through their forearm and their wrist to get the spin on that ball.
Right.
Which is going to cause a larger impact at the end of that lane, throwing pins around a lot more violently than a woman.
Right. Now, here's what happens when you get older, though. Golf, bowling, they all have seniors where they have this, the senior league and stuff like that. Where you get older, you can't compete with those young kids anymore. Arnold Palmer going against Tiger Woods, he's going to outdrive Arnold Palmer, and Arnold Palmer was really good back in his day. So you got to understand that as you get older, that starts to go through. But even at that level.
But again, that's why we have divisions. That's why in golf they have the seniors tournament.
Right.
Because, they want the seniors. Golf, they like their old-time golfers. They like to hold on to them. And a lot of sports I do too. I get sad when my favorite players retire and they can't compete. Or not even when they retire. A lot of them when they're getting to that end of their career and they just can't compete like they used to.
Yeah.
But, that golf is one of those sports that you can play competitively through a very much older age.
Right.
But the thing is, you compete with your age bracket.
Right.
At that point.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you take Mickelson, who's like prime right now, and he's on the pro tour, and he says, you know what, I think I identify as a senior. I'm going to go stomp all these old people.
I think he actually might be in the senior league now.
Is he on the Oh, that shows my age.
It's been a while, but, Rory McIlroy. I don't watch a lot of golf, but I know he's one of the top golfers right now. And, he is in his prime years. And, if he said, I'm going to identify as a senior, I'm going to go play on the senior circuit, he would probably clean up.
There's no doubt about it. He could outdrive those people. It's what happens. Is that fair?
Well, imagine back when Tiger Woods was in his prime, if all of a sudden he said, I think I'm a woman. I think I'm Tigress Woods. Do you know what he would have done to the women's tournament? Look what he did to the men's tournament. It was a joke for a couple years there. It was, odds, if you went to bet on golf, you could take Tiger or you could bet the field, and it still wasn't even odds.
Right. It's just amazing. You take someone like that in their prime, there's no comparison when it comes to that. Mm-hmm. So why are we invading their space?
No,
let them shine. Let women be women. Yeah. I don't want the women's championship to be all men.
No.
I thought we were getting away from that. Is that, everybody's like, yeah, we need to support women's rights and all this. You're taking them away by stealing their spotlight.
And really, on one hand, because the left's done this, how can you say it's okay for a man to go and compete in a woman's sport, but then also rip on people for not supporting the WNBA.
Well, yeah, that's crazy.
Granted, I've tried, and I'm not a big basketball fan. I haven't been a basketball fan since the 90s when it went from being a team sport to a look at me sport. That's the only thing that I will really give women's basketball, because I don't find basketball entertaining to begin with, and never was a big fan of the women's basketball, just because a lot of the reason people watch basketball is for the high-flying dunks and the crazy stuff that the men do, which you don't see as much in the women. Now, there have been some women that can get up there and they can throw the ball down.
Right.
Back when the WNBA started, Lisa Leslie, she could throw it down with any of them, but still, it's, the idea of saying to someone, well, we can have men and women's sports, but you need to support the WNBA as a pure item. And why aren't they getting the support that the NBA is? Well, part of it's probably because of how you're marketing the product.
I'd be okay with co-ed sports. Like if you wanted to have like a co-ed basketball team where half the team is men, half the team is women, and they compete with another team that's half men, half women. Mm-hmm. I'm all for that. I think that would be kind of cool.
Yeah, we're probably going to be wrapping this up soon because I think we've talked this subject to death for now, but I just had this come to me. This wasn't a planned add to this, but you'll probably find this funny because we started talking about basketball. When I was in high school, I want to say it was my sophomore year, maybe my junior year, my high school's men's and women's team both won the state championship. Combined, they lost one game. The women lost a game early in the season. Men went undefeated all season. So the school decided to do a charity event, which I like charities as long as it's going to a good cause. I don't remember what this went to, but they did a charity event. The boys' team versus the girls' team.
Okay.
But there was a catch. The boys' team had to play with boxing gloves on.
I like that idea. I like that.
Now, basketball, you got to use your hands a lot with basketball. Whether you're dribbling, whether you're getting ready to take a shot, you don't have dexterity with your hands in boxing gloves. I don't know if you've ever worn boxing gloves, but and for those of you that haven't, go find the biggest set of winter mittens you can, and then put about 8 to 10 of them on.
Yeah, and then try and palm a basketball.
Yeah. Try and do anything with the basketball. The boys' team still crushed the girls' team, even with boxing mitts on.
Brute strength, I tell you.
It was just they had more skill because of how they developed.
Yeah.
It didn't look pretty watching them dribble it down the court or pass it to each other, but
that'd have been hilarious to watch.
It was. There was a lot of dunks on the men's side because they couldn't shoot worth shit.
Right. That's the only way they get it. Mm-hmm. Hold it as quick as you can and dunk it in there.
Yep. Get it to the big man down underneath the hoop and have him dunk it.
I bet watching that start and watching them just... Here's the thing, is they're going to learn as they go through. So, first quarter, man, I bet you they look like, crazy. It must have been crazy.
Oh, yeah. They looked like they were so uncoordinated.
Yep. But as they started learning how to do that and adapting and saying, well, I can't shoot with this. The only thing I have is the dunk. Mm-hmm. They adapt. People adapt, and especially athletes.
Yeah.
Sorry, once that adapting curve is over, I can see it over there.
Once it clicks in their head that, okay, I need to change this a little bit and I need to adjust that, and it wasn't even close by the end of the game. It was fun. Both teams had a great time. Like I said, it was for charity, so it wasn't like it was competitive to see who's better, the boys' team or the girls' team. But it just kind of illustrates that point that even if you severely handicap the boys' team in a sport that you need that dexterity in your hands, you need to be able to use your fingertips, and you take all that away from them, they still came out way on top.
Well, that's hilarious. I like that they did it, and I like that they made it fun. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't... I could support that kind of stuff happening, but not if it's a competition, not if it's a true competition and records are on the line.
Well, because it's not a true competition. It's trying to pass something off as legitimate at that point.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, well, I think we're going to wrap it up here. Thanks for joining me at the end of this one after I went on my little rant.
I enjoyed it.
All right, well, everyone, this has been the Proud American Patriot Podcast. Give me a listen. I'm on all the major podcast players out there. Hopefully you like what you hear. Give me a like, a heart, big old thumbs up, depending on whatever platform you're listening to. We'll be back again later. That's it for today. I'm out of here.